Time is 5 p.m. Call to order. The Bastrop EDC Board reserves the right to convene into executive session at any time during the meeting regarding any agenda item in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551, Government Code. First item is the executive session. Time is still 5 o'clock. The Bastrop EDC Board of Directors will meet in a closed executive session pursuant to the Texas Government Code Section 551072, deliberation about the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, and Section 551071, attorney-client consultation to discuss Project Revolution. Bastrop EDC Board of Directors, the time is 5:06. The Bastrop EDC Board of Directors will reconvene into open session to discuss, consider, and or take any action necessary related to Project Revolution. There's no action at this time. Do we have any public comments today? We do not. Going on to item 4.1, approval of meeting minutes of the Bastrop EDC regular board meeting of March 19, 2018, and the joint meeting with City Council of March 22nd, 2018. Sean.
Chair, Board, the minutes from both those meetings are in your packet. If you have any questions, Angela is here to answer those for you. And the joint meeting minutes are prepared by the City Secretary when there's a joint meeting, just to make that clear.
Move to approve.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carries. Item 4.2, acceptance of the Bastrop EDC's financial summary report for period ending March 31st, 2018. That is on page 10. Sean?
Correct. Within your packet is the financial summary ending March 2018. And as you can see here, revenue were $176,000 against expenses of $501,000, being a monthly variance of negative $325,000. I will explain that. We expended $250,000 on the Agnes Street project, which went into escrow for the construction of the drainage channel to the Colorado River. So within the Seton agreement, there is a three-party agreement between the EDC, Seton family of hospitals, and the property owner to construct a channel to the Colorado River for drainage. We funded $250,000. The seller funded $250,000, and Seton funded $625,000. And we have received confirmation that all monies have been received at the title company and are in escrow. So. The next page, just make sure, sales tax revenues are good. Forecast of 154.
Just one quick question on that.
Yes.
Is that part of the 1.2 million?
It is.
Okay.
It is part of the 1.2 million of the project. That is correct. Revenue of 176,000. Oh, wrong slide. Forecast of 154 to actual of 168. Sales tax continues to be strong for the fiscal year. Looking at our forecast here, where the 250,000 shows up in the way that the city pulls it. It shows up in marketing and advertising. Why it does, I don't know, but that's where it does show up. And so you're looking at our forecast against our actual, and so we are good for the 770 for the forecast, 714 for the actual, 56,000 for the variance. So we're good for the month. Budget is 3.1. On our outlay projects, we've outlaid 363,000, which leaves us a budget balance of 2.7 million. And you see here that 291 where that 250 is coming out of. The rest of this is engineering dollars. I did talk to the engineer today. Gene has a meeting scheduled with them next week to get an update on all three projects. They are going to come in May and update the board. What I can tell you is the Agnes Street plans, if they're not at 90% at the end of the review today, they will be at 90% by the time they see you in May. We are going to be asking Charlie and his team to kind of put together what the options are for the bid process or negotiating a contract for that, because it's been a while, because it's really a legal mechanism of what your options are, so that the engineer has direction from y'all at the May meeting and how to move forward. with the options that are open to an EDC. But I have not spoken to Charlie yet, but we are going to ask him to kind of give you a quick overview of what that looks like. Fund balances is after the audit. So 3.8 million when we started the year, 3.7 million in revenue. That includes 1.2 million in debt issuance against 1.5 in operating, 3.2 in capital, 381 in debt, 5.1 million in total expenditures, leaving us a fund balance at the end of the year of 2.4 million is the current estimate. And then looking at a current debt obligation goes out to FY33. Financial statements are in your board packets outside of the $250,000. We still have the occupancy issue with the rent increase that'll have to be dealt with later in the year, but at the moment there was nothing that red flagged to me.
Make a motion to accept the financials. Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Carries.
Stone Cobalt is still en route.
Okay, so we'll jump over to 4.4. Consideration and discussion and possible action on Resolution R 2018-0002 of the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation approving and requesting approval of an amendment to the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation FY 2017-2018 annual budget to allocate $40,000 from reserve funds for remediation of the lot at 921 Main Street. This is on page 40.
Thank you, Cam. Thank you, Chair. If you remember last month, we had a conversation about interim remediation at 921 Main Street, and the board thumbed up having KSA Engineering go ahead and review the 2017 plan and kind of update that and what it looked like in 2018 and provide an interim remediation plan, and that is in progress, and I think they'll have that ready to present at the May meeting. In order to continue moving this forward, if we do decide to move forward with some interim remediation, we needed to get a budget amendment started. And so we asked the board for direction and guidance, and the direction y'all gave us is we estimated that it could be up to $30,000 based on the KSA work that they'd done at the last board meeting. We went ahead and asked for $40,000 because we didn't want to end up short and have to come back and ask for more money down the road. And so this resolution amends the EDC budget to take $40,000 out of that $2.4 million in fund balance, put it into the budget into the 921 Main Street line item that has $0 in it for this year. The $4,500 for engineering comes out of the professional services line item for engineering. So this will increase our budget on the expense side by $40,000 with no revenue. On the city side of this, just so that y'all understand how this works, we pass a resolution. The city actually will include this resolution in an ordinance and have two readings of an ordinance to amend the budget. So it gets really confusing on budget amendments for the EDC. The board does it by resolution, the city does it by two readings of an ordinance. So, and we have that already scheduled for the next council meeting with the quarterly update from finance, should the board so decide to approve this tonight.
Any comments, questions?
I move that we approve Resolution R 2018-0002.
All in favor? Any opposed? It carries. Thank you, Sean.
Let's go ahead and do 4.5 if y'all don't mind, because
Sounds
I know
great.
that Jason has a plane to catch.
Yeah, no worries. 4.5, consideration, discussion, and possible action regarding proposed debt issuance for FY 2018 for the Agnes Street Extension Project and/or the Technology Drive MLK Extension and Drainage Project. This is going to be on page 50 of your packet. So,
Yes,
Sean?
Jason Hughes with Hilltop Securities, who is the financial advisor for the EDC, was in Austin today and was able to come out out tonight to answer any questions of the board. Y'all will be providing him, if at all possible, directions on the FY18 debt issuance, and he can talk to you about the process moving forward. He's also going to have a recommendation of holding a special meeting in conjunction with the same day as a city council meeting, so that the EDC could approve the debt issuance and take it to council that same night. So, but Jason's going to go over all that. That's why he's here. I don't want to steal his thunder, so Jason Hughes. And your slides are up there.
Okay. Chair, members, good evening. Good to be with you again. One of the things, if you recall, I was here on February 26th, and at that time I went through this presentation, which I'm not going to go through it again, but at the time we were looking at potentially anywhere from a $1.2 million issuance up to a $3 million issuance. And from talking with Sean, what I've understood is that the board has settled on 1.2 million. So what I'd like to do is, one of the things that we had talked about, I provided analysis, as you can see there on the left-hand side under the dark blue box for 1.2 million. What we talked about is 15-year up to a 20-year term. And if you recall, whenever I'd made that presentation back in February, what we're anticipating doing is going through what's known as a private placement. And so what we're going to do is put this out, assuming you want to move forward, and allow local, area and regional and even national banks to bid on this. And then we take the lowest bid from those, i.e. the lowest interest rate, lowest cost to the EDC, and that's the winner of the bonds. I do think that we have some banks that will bid on 20-year bonds. However, if you look at it, banks typically are looking at bond terms of 10 years up to 15 years. So if the board thinks that they could go with a 15-year term and roughly $111,000 average annual debt service versus $95,000 on the 20-year, I would recommend that, because again, I think we will have more participation from the banks. I think we'll have more banks bid on it. And in theory, the more banks, the more competition you get, the lower the interest rate. If you say, no, Jason, we really like the $95,000 level, that's where we think we want to be, I think we'll get bids. So I don't want it to make it sound like it's going to be bad bids or anything like that. I think, again, on the 15-year, you'd probably get more. So assuming that you do want to move forward, and if you have some guidance that you can give me as far as just confirming the amount, and then again, the term, then what we'll probably do is by Wednesday or Thursday of this week, we'll have a draft term sheet out to a list of banks. And again, I'll talk with local banks as well. So local regional banks, as well as banks that we know that are players in the municipal arena. So we'll have that out. One of the things I had talked to Sean said about having the meeting the same day, I did go back and look at the calendar. I think your regular meeting's going to be May 21st, if that's, okay, well, the board meeting, I was thinking. Yeah, so the board meeting, so I do think since we're going through a private placement, we can most likely just tell any potential buyer that you would meet on the 21st, approve it, council would then ratify your decision effectively on the 22nd, and that would keep you from having to have two meetings back to back. So if that's okay, obviously with the board and with council. So that would be the process. What I would do then is come back to you on the night of the 21st. I would have a completed transaction in hand. In other words, I would have something that has final interest rates, debt service, things of that nature. So in some ways, I liken it to buying a car. You finish that process, you know exactly how much you paid for the car, you know your interest rate, you know how much you're paying on a monthly basis. All that, again, would be subject to your approval upon seeing those final terms. So that would be on the 21st. Assuming you approve it then, assuming council then ratifies your decision on the 22nd, then we'd close roughly a month later. Attorney General would review all of the action items you've taken, make sure that we're in compliance with state law, and then we close the funds, and you'd have funds in the bank again, roughly June 22nd, give or take somewhere right around there. So that would be the process. So any questions you have or any details? Yes, sir.
Any difference in interest rates between 10, 15, and 20?
What I had, as far as the 15 to 20 years, what I would estimate is probably 1/4 to 1/2%.
Higher on the
Yes,
20?
on the 20, yes, sir. One other thing too, I would point out, by going the bank route, we have a lot more flexibility in our call feature. In other words, if let's say that Bastrop continues to see retail and commercial growth, your sales tax are growing, we typically would have a shorter call feature which would allow you to pay off that debt quicker than if we went out and did an open market financing. So you retain a little bit more flexibility there as well.
That was my next question. What is the typical call on a private placement?
On a private placement, sometimes we'll see banks that say callable anytime. So you ratify it, the next day they're callable. Sometimes we'll see banks, they'll say 5 years, 8 years, so somewhere in there. But usually if we're going out and we're selling via the open market, that's kind of a 10-year standard call, let's say that. And if you start shortening from there, then you really start seeing an interest rate penalty, higher interest rates. You don't usually see that with banks as much. So I can't tell you exactly because I don't know the exact bids we'll get, but I would expect something shorter than 10 years, certainly. Other questions? Oh.
Presentation was very good last time. I think we all, got a pretty good idea of what it entails. And, I think a 15 is probably a pretty good time frame myself.
Yeah, and Sam, we're all looking at you, as treasurer with the background, so it seems to be right in line with the conversation that we had about trying to keep the recommendation that we have. We're fine on reserves. We know the roads need to be built. The 15 and the 1.2 seems appropriate to me.
For the record, I think a motion from, and second, for the record would be, and a vote would be appropriate.
I make that motion that we go for a 15-year term for $1.2 million.
A second?
One thing before that motion is taken, if I could just clarify, is it 1.2 million is what the board wants to net in project proceeds, is that correct?
Yes.
So in other words, the cost would be on top of that? Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, thank you.
No, Jason, we want 1.2 and max. You have to figure it out. No fees.
Well,
No,
that's going to be
that's
a little
good.
bit more difficult.
If you go back to the budget, we actually when the fees are actually on top of the 1.2 million. It's 1.245, I think, was the estimate, was the debt issuance.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carries.
Chair, member, thank you.
Thank you. Safe travels.
All right.
We're going to skip back to 4.3 on the agenda, and that is consideration, discussion, and possible action regarding a presentation from Stone Cobalt on the 921 Main Street redevelopment project, letter of intent, and pre-leasing activity. And this is found on page 25.
So Guy Dudley from Stone Cobalt is here tonight, as well as Bob Springer from REAC Austin, who is their broker. The board asked a couple months ago when y'all granted them a 60-day extension to come back before that 60 days was up and kind of have a conversation with y'all about where they're at, what they're seeing, where they're going in this public-private partnership between the EDC and Stone Cobalt. And so Guy and Bob, and I have not seen Tom, is Tom? No Tom tonight, are here to visit with y'all. And so I'm going to turn the mic over to Guy and let them kind of lead this conversation.
Good evening, board members, chair. Thank you all very much for having us back to come talk about this project. I guess where to start off with this, y'all know this has been a very difficult and challenging little project, but one of the things that we're finding, there is a lot of interest still in this area. But the problem is we're finding that this is a very large project for downtown Bastrop. One of the things, if at a 4,500 square foot lot, we are coming in, and I guess there's three big things, sorry, I'm jumping in the gun. There's three things that we are running into. The first, literally this is a 4,500 square foot lot that we're looking to put 2 stories on, so 9,000 square feet of brand new space in downtown Main Street. And that seems fantastic, but looking at what's out there now, what's going on, we just sampled what's on Main Street for sale right now. It's averaging 200 days on the market, and they're averaging about 2,400 square feet total. So we're almost 4 times the size of that. So that's one of the things, the challenges that are running up against us. Secondly, the stuff that's already there now, it's available. It's ready to go, which kind of is a hindrance. From our standpoint, what is great and what brought us to this project is the vision. I mean, I think that street is downtown is great. I talked about it when I came up and spoke with y'all last year. Knowing Bastrop, growing up here in Central Texas, the idea of having this great rebuilt two-story thing is fantastic. But we need to find a partner from the public, not the public side, a partner as a tenant that believes in that. And coming in and having that much space has been challenging. Thirdly, with the construction costs of coming in of what we're doing right now in Central Texas to build it, and I'm going to go back to, oh, well, you've got 5 spaces up and down Main Street that will go right now. So those are the things that we're trying to see, or those are kind of the problems that we're running into. And I think one of the things that's coming in, we have ideas of what we can do to move forward, but as Sean talked about, let's have a conversation because this is where we're at. Yes, sir.
You need to use your mic.
Oh.
All right, you said number 3 was your construction cost, but you
Yes,
followed
sir.
up by saying there's just too much availability. So address the construction
Oh.
cost. Thank
Sorry,
you.
in my head, thank you very much. One of the things that's in with this is coming in, and we need to have a good return for this to come in to make sense financially. And so right off the bat, one of the things that we first thought about is, okay, we're doing 2 stories. Well, let's just do 1 story. Let's just do 1 story, and then after we do the 1 story, fix the walls, because that's one of the things that needs to happen to help the other tenants. But then if you cut the building in half, you cut the rental income in half. And so where I was talking about, board member, was the fact that we have so much construction costs, they're high now anyway, but there's so much availability of leased space that you don't have to build. Like, here's your key, you can come in. And that's what I meant by that. Does that make sense?
I guess it does make sense, but quite frankly, you're creating a lot of questions in my mind.
Oh, listen, conversation.
Okay. Being part of the subcommittee that took a look at this proposal, I was pretty much on the impression that you guys have had not only a lot of experience in doing this, but you've taken a look at this particular area and made a decision that not only did you want to go forward with proposing that you are a bidder on this project and you wanted to get this project, that you would have also have looked at what this area is, what's available, basically done your due diligence prior to even going and saying, hey, let's go and bid this project. So to hear it now that we've pushed it out a little bit, and now we're hearing that, wow, guys, there's so much out there and this and that, it's just a little surprising to me that we're here today. And that, to me, in my book, should have been something that you would have already taken a look at. So why are we hearing about it now?
I completely understand your point, and I think it has tons of merit. I think you're absolutely correct. When we started and looked down this project, we had 4 or 5 tenants that were in mind for taking this, looking at breweries, restaurants, and a distillery. They were great, that sounds fantastic, but none of that's panned out. And so going through this, that is some of the challenges that we've been having that we just weren't anticipating. You bet.
Can you share with us the potentials that you thought you kind of had interested? What were their comments? Why did they walk away? What were the 1, 2, and 3s that you heard over and over again?
The 2 that we had over and over and over, not enough traffic, was the big one. Just being there on the main street versus being on the highway, trying to grow. And the second one was just compatible uses near it. I know one of the things that we want to do to try to pull in this is we want a destination in downtown. But a lot of what the guys were pulling is, well, we don't want to be the only destination. So that were the 2 off the top of the head.
I totally understand that. Obviously, you, us, everybody would like there to be tenants fighting over each other
Yes, ma'am.
to get into the space. The reality is kind of we are where we are. So I'm waiting for the other foot to drop, or is there some good news tonight, or is there a recommendation of how you think we should move forward?
Well, one of the things that we are also having struggles with is the fact that our term is just 60 days. So to come in and have an LOI extension for that is not getting a lot of positive feedback from the community. Secondly, one of the things that would be a recommendation I would the first thing for the board then is a 6-month extension. That's one of the things we would like to ask for. But then secondly, one of the things that we would like to look to is, because this is not ours and y'all can walk away if nothing happens of it, putting in architectural and engineering renderings, like hardcore finite details to do that. What we were hoping to do as we were moving forward with the tenants that we had really spoken with, come in, get the letter of intent from those guys, bring them in, lock up the deal, and then go out and get engineering and architecture.
And if we were to take that scenario and take that suggestion and go with it, tell me what's going to change between now and 6 months from now with the availability of the buildings and the exact same scenario you're talking about, why you don't have anything right now. What's going to change substantially to make it go, oh, wow, we got a 6 months extension, boom, now we're ready to go. I just would like to know what...
Honestly, I don't believe a whole lot, but these are the conversations I'm trying to have to think of ideas of what we can do. Because unfortunately, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Springer, coming in and having him sell an empty lot versus having him sell a building that's complete. So that is one of the biggest struggles that we're having. So to answer your question, what I would like to ask for is a 6-month extension. I mean, that's the first on the load. I mean, we are here at the pleasure of the board, no pun intended. We're here to try to do what we think is best for Bastrop and with y'all for what's best for Bastrop.
Well, I have a little bit of problem with giving another extension. I mean, we've looked at the plan. We've already tied up, what, 9 months now in this for? Well, we just gave him a 60-day. He only had 60 days to begin with?
6 months.
Yeah. So, now it's been,
Yes, ma'am.
8 months? And I just wondering if we should go back and look at the plan of 921 before we extend another 6 months, because he just admitted that he doesn't really see like something's going to jump out in the next 6 months. So maybe a building isn't the right way to go. Maybe we need to go back and look at that before we, extend another 60 days onto this. Or 6 months he's asking for.
Yes, ma'am.
The only thing I would add to that is that when we started this project and we had kind of a strategic view of what we thought we were going to do, we had some engineering ideas. We even hired a firm to help us come up with that. So are you saying now we want to kind of step back and revisit that whole thing again?
Well, I mean, I hate to redo the plan, but apparently this isn't quite what he's trying to sell. It's not, there's a lot of empty spaces out there available to rent, and I hate to ask us to go back through it again, but if it's not working, we can't make it work. And I don't want to invest in a big building that can't rent if we already have several other spaces to rent,
Not
and
to interrupt.
the eyesore is still an eyesore.
Yes, ma'am.
The empty
And the last
lot.
thing we want to do is build a building that sits there empty. I mean, that's not a good thing for anybody. So,
Yeah, I want to, let's take a step back, if Sean, and correct me if I'm mistaken on this, but it was my understanding that we were given a few options. And one of those options was to be a partner financially in building the building, and it was this board that did not want to take on that financial responsibility and therefore pass it on. And we did the proposal, the engineering at this point. And it sounds like that without the actual building, it's a little more difficult. Similar discussions where we've had it in the industrial park. If it's not there, it's harder to sell. Is that what I'm hearing? That potentially, maybe finding a partner that does that, whether it's in the private sector or, because I know that was another option that we looked at in the building side of it. Or...
So, this all started in, I believe, late 2015, early 2016. I'd have to go back and get the full presentation out and go back on my notes. But what the board has made clear, this board and previous boards, is they did not want to have independent fiduciary duty to constructing a building. They always wanted to have a public-private partnership in which a private developer came in to actually build and market the building, and the EDC would participate reasonably within whatever the return on the investment was once tenants were able to be obtained. What we know about marketing, 6 months later after marketing this, what we know is that there's 2 new buildings that have come on the market that they could not have anticipated when they did their RFP response. We know that we have filled at least a space, a couple of spaces downtown in the interim. And so we're probably neutral when you go look at spaces downtown. There's probably more buildings for sale today than there were when they first started versus buildings available for lease. I think what they're asking for is a reasonable ask in the 6-month extension. The risk that they run in going out and expending private funds to go and develop a virtual building, renderings for it, architectural plans, is a lot, because when that 6 months comes to an end, they don't own that anymore, and it's money that's as a private developer that they've put at risk. We, the EDC, could go expend that money now, which, you know, we have some level of participation that we looked at in their original proposal, and at the end of that 6 months, we would own those renderings in that virtual building, and whether we continued on with stone cobalt or decided to go another direction at the end of 6 months, those virtual renderings and those virtual buildings would be ours. What we know in construction in Austin is when you start putting steel up, when you start digging the hole, there's a lot more interest in actually leasing the space than out there saying, hey, we've got a hole in the middle of the street, or we've got this vacant piece of real estate. Somebody's put some effort into it and gone and gotten a permit and has some real vision for what it is. I think we're kind of stuck in that middle ground right now. We have some vision for what it is, but we really haven't taken the next step, which is let's put some architectural together. Let's go ahead and start putting some engineering together and go, here's where we're going with this, with a shell building, and be able to help provide those marketing materials. I think the ask is reasonable if structured correctly, in which, you know, that virtual building material that they're asking us to put together, it's the same kind of stuff we put together in the industrial park for the available sites out there, would help market it. Is it a guarantee that a tenant will step forward? The answer to that is no. There's a lot of things that have to take place in order to find these tenants, and the market is challenging at the moment. We're going through a flux in downtown, and there's a lot of interest right now. But we've got to find that right tenant to take 4,500 square feet or some portion of that works.
What's the cost estimate on those renderings?
Between $3,000 and $5,000.
Okay. I think, and the site history is in here, and, you know, I mean, I think we all know that originally the building was 1866, but the real interest in the building started in 2016, and we've got some folks in the audience that became extremely interested in the situation because we had impacted 2 buildings on each side. So for me, you know, I wasn't on this dais in 2016, but I hate to see us throw away the work and the money that's already been done. I appreciate the frustration, and I think we're all frustrated, but to Sean's point of 2 additional buildings coming online, I mean, that's kind of real estate. It's unfortunate that happened, but that is the kind of thing that happens. But I think we're in a tough spot to hold Stone Cobalt. They didn't cause that to happen, and it wouldn't really matter who's up here. That is the given situation. The other thing is doing nothing is not an option. We've all agreed to that. We've been through this. We did the design team. So that story's not going to change. So something has to happen. The second thing, if anyone on this board is aware, I don't know if there is, well, I think Stone Cobalt did A, and if they had done B, I think they would have I think they've done a good job. I think they're out marketing to everyone that they can, and the reason that I bring that up is in my mind, if we were to say, well, we're frustrated with, I'm not saying that I am, but I could say I'm frustrated with Stone Cobalt, it'd be 6 months before we'd have anybody else back online help, and then we're losing time. Then you have a piece of property that already has illustrative history, and then now you're flipping people on that too. That doesn't seem that. So I'm glad that we're doing things to protect our neighbors, because I think that's just fiduciarily responsible, and we need to move forward with that. And the idea of spending another $3,000 to $5,000 so that we can get something, honestly, I would rather us spend that $3,000 to $5,000 and own the renderings. That seems just a pittance compared to everything else that we've been through. And maybe whether it's in public, or if there is some executive strategy that we need to have about potential clients. It's an awkward conversation. Those of you in the development business, you don't generally do this in public. That's not usually the best way to get the best deal with a person going forward. So I too am frustrated with a 6-month extension, with the exception that it seems like the best option of where we are at this time, because I believe doing nothing is not an option, and I think that I don't see anything that would make us come back with a different result than what the work that was done by the previous board. That's where my mind is right now.
Yeah, I want to just echo a couple of the comments there, and just make sure we go just a brief history, not too long, but a brief history that lot sat vacant. And we had an issue to really echo the statements about the neighbors. We had deteriorating buildings on both sides. And the reason the previous board decided to go with building a building was the cost for this board or the city to do the repairs, to do whatever else with that would be high. So we said, well, what if we could get some, something built on that property? We would do some intermediate work, which we've done and we've approved to get there. So I think that's just, I want to make sure we put that in the forefront. That was a little history that the previous board, what the goal was in doing this project. Because if to Mayor's point, if we do nothing and then decide to change what the outlook, the cost of that is going to be quite high. So I think at this point, $3,000 to $5,000, we own something. We give Stone Cobalt a little more runway to see if we can get this figured out. I think is a sensible action.
And I just want to make sure that you understand, I don't think it's anything they haven't done. I was just wondering if the idea were traveling, maybe switching maybe the plan of the building, something, I've never developed a building before, but I've sold things before, and if you can't sell it for so long, maybe you have to look at what you're selling.
Fair
That's
question.
what my point is, not to do nothing, and it's nothing in their part. I'm just saying that at one point, you have to look at how long you can kick that can, or that's what I'm just wondering. So it wasn't anything in their part. I just want to make sure that we're still working on something that's worth
And to
working.
Drew's point, you may have some ideas that as long as it's approved by our attorney, it may not be, public may not be the very best place to have some of the conversation. And yes, we want to be transparent, but part of being transparent is making sure that we get the very best deal that we can with this piece of property and with the investment that we've already made. So, I realize that's a fine line, but strategically, to Drew's point, we may want to take a look at, are there some things that we could do differently that would improve the ability to find a tenant?
I think you had a comment.
Yeah, if we're going to be, moving forward is obviously better than doing nothing, so I can agree with that. And you're right, it is a small amount of money. I just want to I really wanted to hear the reasoning why, and you answered it, and I appreciate that. But so yes, moving forward, spending a little more time, it is what it is. So let's be as proactive as possible and continue making as much progress as we can. So, yeah.
So I think the direction that staff is going to need and legal counsel is going to need is a motion to extend the letter of intent for some period of time to be executed by the board chair in this instance, and to bring back to the board that letter of intent with some condition to develop a virtual building plan and what that cost is associated with it to be approved, to have the full letter of intent approved by the board at the next board meeting so that y'all know what that dollar cost is.
I wouldn't include as a condition of anything y'all creating those renderings. Just do that. Don't make it any part of the extension of the letter of intent. I wouldn't do that at all.
So we could just give staff direction and say, we want you to execute and come back to us with what that looks like.
Just direction. All we need is if that's the direction you decide to go, which it sounds like it is, a motion to extend the letter of intent for a period of time, authority for you to execute it, and then staff can come back with what you want to do on any renderings and do that separate and apart from the deal.
Fantastic.
So maybe a same part of the budget line item, but don't mix it up and make it complicated with the LOI.
I just have one thing with if we extend the 6 months, can we have them check back like in 90 days so we don't find out nothing and find out nothing's going on and, find out 6 months from now that we don't have anything?
5 months and 2 weeks.
Okay, I was thinking a little bit shorter time than that.
No, I would agree with you. I mean, having regular updates to the extent possible of how things are going,
Yeah,
then
every 60 days.
I think that's a reasonable request, yes.
I'm scared to ask this and so I'm not going to look at them. Is it 6 months because you think that's the most that we would give you, or is 6 months enough, or are you really wishing it was 7 or 8 because now's the time?
Am I being political or honest?
Honest, please.
The longer the better. I mean, if I could get 9 months or a year, a year's too long. 9 months, because then you're looking, there's the runway. There's the runway with our clients when we come back to these folks. We'll come back with these renderings and say, look, this is what's happening. We have this much time.
6 and 4 is October. I was kind of thinking you get to the end of the year, we all know you're going to lose
December.
Thanksgiving in December anyway, so it's not really extending that much. But if you really got somebody interested and you've got till the end of the year, maybe you have a different interest if you're getting close on the deal. If we're all on the same team, for me at this point, I don't see the difference between 6 months and 8 months. So I just would rather let's do what we can. If we're getting updates every 2 months, then we'll know. Is that easier for you than trying to ask for an update in 2 more months? Gee, it'd really be good to have it till the end of the year. It seems like it's cleaner to me to do it one time. I don't know, board, what all you think, but had to ask.
And what you'd be saying is that really till the end of the year. So, so we know the date-wise. You're talking about extending it till the end of this year.
Is that
that's great.
Better for you?
Yes.
Right, but just remember last year you couldn't do anything from November to December, so you still don't come back in November.
Yeah, and I don't want to
do
hear
anything from November to December.
Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to extend his LOI till the end of the year with the 2-month updates.
He needs you to say December 31st.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
I move to extend his LOI till December 31st, 2019. 18? No, 18. Sorry. Okay, all right. And with 2-month updates.
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Carries. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
And then separate from that, it is agreed that staff is instructed to work with Stone Cobalt to develop renderings and come back to the board with what that looks like.
That would be staff direction, correct?
And I would expect that to be an agenda item on
the
next month
correct.
with an estimate or something.
In the near future.
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect.
Just remember when we first looked at this, you promised that was going to have a balcony, and none of the drawings ever have a balcony. Just so you know that, you promised.
We have renderings with a balcony.
Okay, not in my packet. Just so you know, we need the balcony for Christmas parade, so just so you know that, I agree.
I like the rooftop terrace.
He doesn't get to decide anymore, does
Okay,
he?
now
That's
moving on
y'all's decision.
to item 4.6, receive presentation regarding reallocation of FY18 grant program funds.
Good afternoon or evening, how are you guys today? Hold on, let me find my PowerPoint.
That's going to be on page 72.
Sean lied to me, you said it was on the computer, but I don't see it, so let me figure that out. Y'all have the beautiful slides, but we want everybody in the public to look at them.
They were on there.
They were in the,
Yeah, just keep clicking.
no.
Go the other way. Keep going to the bottom.
Oh, to the bottom. Why would you do that? They're out of order. How do you get to the full page?
Keep going, Control L or just.
I'm used to PowerPoint, not a PDF. Sorry, technical problems. Leave the blonde female to solve them. Thank you all for letting me present tonight. We discussed last month that due to organizational changes, a little thing called the Small Business Revolution, we did not get around in a timely fashion to restructuring the Business Incentive Grant Program. And so we wanted to come back to you all with a presentation to see if we could come up with another method to use the funds to still help the downtown district in some form or fashion. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about what my idea is. First of all, I do want to say thank you to the Economic Development Corporation. Downtown Bastrop and the Bastrop Main Street program couldn't do what we do without y'all's support. Just kind of a recap of everything that you guys enable us to do and that you guys do through your board leadership and your staff. Since 2007, there's been over $500,000 in grant funds to property owners along the historic district. You guys annually fund a portion of the Main Street program's operation budget, which was $40,000 up until last year, and we got a raise to $50,000. Thank you very much. Small business development, I think Jean and Sean and Angela and Kathy and I talk multiple times a day and week. Entrepreneurship support, we do joint training programs together. We work together on downtowntx.org, which is our online database of historic properties that are available for sale or lease, and we'll be doing another Imagine the Possibilities tour on May 17th. We work together on Small Business Saturday, of course, our coffee chats. The EDC worked with the city on several different capital improvement projects before my arrival. We can't thank the EDC enough for their support of the My Bastrop movement, and as well as Sean's mentorship to my sanity while we survived the culinary district and customer service support process. So first of all, thank you guys for all that you do. We have a vision for what we think we want downtown to look like, and it's not the complete visionary downtown master plan that we hope we get complete in the next few years, but our comp plan talks about it, the council's mission and vision and focus areas talk about downtown beautification, our fiscal year 18 work plan talks about it, and this year's budget that the city council adopted was designed to shore up sales tax and increase tourism. It included some strategic policy developments around the distribution of our hotel occupancy tax fund. It created the hospitality and downtown department. We are supporting Visit Bastrop and all that they are doing, as well as the cultural arts master plan development. So all of those things talk about beautification. Why beautification? Why now? Well, I think that when we were in the midst of the revolution, we knew that if we were going to have a film crew here, we needed to start sprucing up. That's both a good thing and a bad thing. The bad thing is that we thought we needed to spruce up, but it's a good thing that we all came to that realization. I know the city manager talks often about the need for us to mimic the 5-star triple diamond experience that the Hyatt guests have. But when they're coming to downtown, is that what they're getting, or are they getting more of a Best Western experience? No offense to Best Western, I like Best Westerns. Our fiscal year 18 work plan under unique environment identified the need to develop a beautification downtown program. Our Main Street Design Committee work plan addresses it. We do not think that we will get to discussing the status of the much anticipated Main Street improvement project anytime soon, and so I think for a long time we didn't place benches downtown because we knew we were going to tear up the streets soon, but I think that there's a lot of work that we can do in the interim until we do have an end date or a start date on that project. Special events, we've got a huge event coming up in May, the Bastrop Music Festival. It's going to attract some folks in from out of town that aren't our normal attendees, and we hope to work with other professional event organizers in the coming years. And of course, the other reason is, I'm pretty sure you've heard Linda say, is it's only our future. And so we got to work with this year's work plan. We allocated about $30,000 in our departmental budget this year for downtown beautification work. We developed a walkthrough and an action list, me, Public Works, Parks Department. The Convention Center staff is almost done with our streetscape inventory as far as where do we have benches, where do we have trash cans, where are there holes, why don't they all match? Can we group them together? Those types of discussions. Approved a CARTS interlocal agreement for a new bus stop downtown. The beautification action plan that I've been working on internally has been discussed at the Main Street board level and committee level. We are working with several partners, Keep Bastrop County Beautiful and the Master Gardeners. And then about 2 weeks ago, I started working on actually developing the budget. And so that's when the aha moment hit me, is why in the world am I trying to think of another project to come to the EDC board for to see about allocating those $50,000 when we have a list of projects? Because I'm blonde, and it took me putting the numbers together to realize that my beautification action list for this fiscal year was about $100,000. With the $30,000 in my hospitality and downtown departmental budget, and then the $20,000 that we project we're going to be raising through special event revenues this year, we have a shortfall of right around $50,000. And so that is why I am here tonight, is because I think instead of us recreating the wheel or trying to find another way to use those funds, I think that we may be able to speed up our action plan list and kind of do this beautiful downtown makeover over the course of the next 90 days and really have a big splash downtown. Some of the things that it includes is additional seating. That is ordering new benches where we need new benches, repairing some of the ones that we have, creating several different parklet locations. One is at the Spring and Main intersection. You can see that kiosk has already been removed. We've started doing some of the manual label already. The other parklet is going to be along the Riverwalk entrance, and those are the two that we've identified for this fiscal year. We hope next year we'll come up with some additional ones. We need a lot of new race receptacles downtown, as well as smokers outposts all over Main Street, as well as in the Alley D parking lot and Alley B parking lots. Some additional lighting in Alley B, which is behind or on the other side of Neighbors Kitchen and Yard. Bike racks. We are also in the process this week, hopefully, they're in my office, are our new parking wayfinding banner signs that the Public Works crew will get up, and we've already done some additional signage. And then the bottom picture is actually one of the planter boxes that the Cedar Creek High School shop class is in the process of building for us, and we plan on installing 25 of these. Hopefully, we will get them installed this summer and plant them in early September, early fall. That's when the people with green thumbs tell me it's the best time to do so. And then we also, the Main Street Design Committee is working on a Bastrop and Bloom project. Our thought is we know that we can't afford to do this every year, and so we have to figure out a way to sustain the landscaping at LED, sustain the landscaping at Spring and Main, and also sustain these planter boxes. But to really be able to get the community support behind those projects, we want to come in and make a huge splash this summer, get these items placed, the beautification done, and hopefully help Stone and Cobalt sell the 921 Main building. Beautification leads to increased foot traffic, broader tourism and economic development appeal, improved recruitment and retention rates, business and property owner pride, which also increases motivation, as well as I hope that it will reach some of our residents that may not go downtown all the time. And hopefully we can start some discussion and get the conversation going about how important supporting local businesses are and how important going downtown is. Just a look ahead, and we also have identified some projects that we know we want to tackle in 19, and so we will do those on the city side of things. The Bastrop in Bloom, which is the Sustainable Beautification and Planning Program. Thursday night at the mid-year budget workshop, we'll take a look at some of the numbers, but in 2015, the Main Street program raised $8,000 through special event revenues, and we're on target to hit 40 grand this year. And so we will keep that up to help offset the maintenance and continue the beautification on our own, so we won't be coming back to the EDC board every year for this funding. We're also going to continue our discussions about our small business needs and downtown needs as a whole. And I know that you guys have some changes in store, but we need to sit down, both entities, and talk about what the fiscal year 19 grant funding looks like, if it's available, so that we do not get behind as we did this year. Long-range planning, of course, we still need to talk about future growth and then capital projects downtown, but just wanted to let you know that we know all of that is coming. Questions? These are actually two of the planner boxes from my previous life in downtown Nacogdoches that we did. I threw them in here since I don't have any pictures to show you guys yet, but I'll be happy to answer any questions. I've got the spreadsheet with the projected costs of benches, trash cans, bike racks, the planter boxes, new signage at the farmer's market, the lighting in Alley B. Also includes the purchase of a watering cart with a tank to make sure the plants stay watered in the Texas weather. So be happy to answer any questions, get any direction or feedback from you guys.
Well, I, for one, think it's a good plan because it's kind of late in the year for, for small businesses to enter into our normal funding.
We wouldn't have been able to close it out by the end of the budget year.
Right, they wouldn't have been able to come up with it. So I think it's a good idea to help you finish out with what you're doing, because that's still helping the small businesses downtown, helping them beautify everything. It's still going towards,
That's right.
It's still going towards the main goal we started off by offering it in our line item.
I think this is definitely the best use I've heard suggested of, the money that we'd already allocated to do this sort of thing.
What I recall is in August, September of last year, the discussion was whether or not we were going to spend part of the grant fund to help somebody expedite a contractor so they could get it done by September 30th.
That's right, we're not going to get
And
that
so the
situation.
idea of spending money on things that not only benefit all of the businesses instead of one particular business, but quite frankly makes it nicer for all of us that walk downtown. I like the idea of there is a specific hit list. It's going to be done in a specific amount of time. So, and I also like the idea of you don't plan on coming back every single year. You guys are trying
I wanted
to
to
get
make
it
sure
done.
I included that for you guys. If you guys like this direction, I think the next step is that Charlie will draw up some documents. Is that what Sean told me? And then you guys can sign on the dotted line. We will still continue our work because we have funding. It won't slow up the process. We will know that the money is coming eventually, but I think there's some legal paperwork that Charlie has to draw up that you can legally allocate the funding for that.
The line item is $50K, if I recall correctly, right?
It is, but there has to be a finding of fact resolution that this is within the EDC's purview and within the EDC's mission.
Yeah, and that's fine, but I just wanted, it's not like, I want the public to know, we're not talking about throwing more money at it. That is what was allocated for this, and now we're talking about spending it a slightly different way.
That is correct.
Correct.
Anyone opposed?
Do you need a motion that we, no, we don't?
We just need head nods to give them direction to do the fact finding and make sure it falls within the confines, and then we bring it back to the board at that point.
Oh, someone would like to say. Thank you.
We have some comments. So Richard, on 925 Main Street, and he's wants to go and talk about this, 4.6. So Richard.
Hi, Richard Smarzak, 925 Main Street. I actually put together a proposal for an alternate use for that 50K. I'd like time to finish and put before the board, have it vetted by the attorney. It's around a rent incentive program to get some of the empty buildings filled in. I think as a B corporation, we could spend that 50K and help reduce some of the rents to get some tenants in those buildings. Just my comments.
Okay, fair enough.
We can still move our budgeted money and then wait until you guys hear the proposal next month. Yep.
So, thank you, Richard. Look forward to that. Going on to item 4.7. Consideration, discussion, and possible action on the resignation of Sean Kirkpatrick as Executive Director of the EDC.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Board. Thank you, community. It has been my honor and privilege to serve this corporation for a little over 3 years. And a couple of Fridays ago, I sat down with Cam and tendered my resignation as Executive Director of the EDC, effective Friday the 20th this week. It was really something my family and I have been discussing for some time into last year as we looked at our children and what is best for their future and where we're going. And it just became apparent that it was best for us to make some different educational choices for them to allow them to be successful in our family. And I had an opportunity to go back to the private sector, which I'm going to do. That announcement won't be made until after I leave the EDC, but it's those of y'all that have heard it privately are very excited about where I'm going and what I'm going to be doing. It's something that I'm very passionate about, as well as something that I've enjoyed doing while I'm in the public service sector. And so I want to thank this board and all of the previous board members that I've had the opportunity to serve with, all the members of the EDC staff and city staff. I've had the privilege of working with so many great people here in Bastrop. I have some friends that will be lifelong friends that I've met in my tenure here, and it's very sad for me to leave. But what I know about what I do is where I work is never home, but Austin is home for me, and so y'all will continue to see me and have to put up with me. Piney Creek is one of my favorite date night spots in Bastrop. My wife and I frequent Kevin's establishment regularly. Sugar Shack is one of the kids, and so we will come back and enjoy Bastrop and all that it is. I'm looking forward to the music festival coming up in May. But I want to thank you, this board, and every board that I've served with here in this whole community for this opportunity, because it was a dream to be able to come to Bastrop and be able to serve for this period of time. And unfortunately, it's come to an end. But as we like to say, a new road and a new bridge has opened up for us as a family, and we're going to be leaving here to go pursue new opportunities. So thank you all very much.
Sean, I always admire men and women that put their family first, and I wish your kids the very, very best of luck.
Is it okay if we don't make the resolution? Oh.
Yeah.
We need a motion to accept the resignation.
I move to accept the resignation of Executive Director Sean Kirkpatrick. Best of luck, Sean.
Second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All who reluctantly approve? Yeah. All approve? Any opposed? No. Sean, I will say it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure working closely with you. I appreciate your professionalism and wish you and the family the best of luck. Thank you. Going on to 5.1, the time is 6:08. The Bastrop EDC Board of Directors will meet in a closed executive session pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, to discuss the following. Number 1, Section 551-071, consultation with attorney, update regarding the BEDC's contract with the Bastrop Fine Arts Guild, the Executive Director. And Section number 2, 551-074, personnel matters, deliberate the appointment and employment of an Executive Director. Okay, the time is 7:27. The Bastrop EDC Board of Directors will reconvene into open session to discuss, consider, and/or take any action necessary related to the executive sessions noted herein.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we give Cam and Sean the authority to reach out to Texas First to discuss an interim executive director.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I would like to move that we use the same Cam and Sean to contract with SGR to fill the permanent position. Yes, to reach out.
A second?
All in favor? Any opposed? The time is 7:28. We are adjourned.
Good job. So, I need